The collapse of a sky-high illusion. I thought I knew my wife, Jennifer. 11 years we'd built a life, brick by painstaking brick. I thought I knew her until the day I found her. Her laughter spilling freely, intimately with another man in our favorite cafe. The note I left was stark, brutal in its simplicity. Don't come home. What she did next, what she revealed in the aftermath, shattered the last shards of my respect. But she wasn't prepared for how a man who builds skyscrapers handles betrayal. By the time I was finished, their worlds had crumbled, and I stood unyielding on solid ground. My name is Adrian Steele. I am 43, a senior architect at Thornton and Associates, one of Boston's premier architectural firms. For 11 years, I believed our marriage, Jennifer's and mine, she, a photographer, I, a builder of giants, was an unshakable edifice. We chose careers over children. I designed iconic structures across New England. She sculpted her photo studio into a respected institution within artistic circles. That Tuesday in April dawned deceivingly as one of the finest days of my professional life. After a 3-hour battle royale meeting where I refused to compromise on my vision for the Richardson Museum expansion, the board unanimously approved my design. The CEO himself clasped my hand, a rare gesture. "This is why we hired you, Steele," he'd rumbled. "You don't back down when you know you're right." Drunk on this victory, I decided to surprise Jennifer. I'd neglected her lately, swallowed whole by this colossal project, and it was time to reconnect. I bought lilies, her beloved flowers from Giovanni's, the very place where we'd bought them during our Italian honeymoon, and headed for her studio in the art district, the first cracks in the wall. "She left early," Megan, her assistant, murmured with a peculiar hesitancy, "meeting a client at Luciana's cafe." She paused, then, as if compelled, added, "Some gallerist. She's been seeing a lot of him lately." Something in her tone, a barely perceptible shift, sent an icy current down my spine. I thanked her, my steps accelerating with each of the 6 blocks to the cafe. The moment I pushed open the door, the world tilted on its axis. There in the corner booth sat Jennifer with a well-dressed man, roughly my age. Her hand wasn't merely resting on his, her fingers were entwined with his. She laughed at something he said, leaning in, an unmistakable gesture of intimacy. I knew that laugh. It was the laugh that had once been reserved solely for me. For a breath, I froze, the lilies clutched, crushed, in my hand. Then 20 years of confrontations on construction sites and battles in boardrooms took over. A true man faces his problems head-on. I strode towards their table, each step measured. Neither of them noticed me until I stood over them, casting a long, dark shadow over their cozy scene. Jennifer's head snapped up, her smile evaporating as our eyes met. "Adrian?" Her hand yanked away from his as if burned. "What are you—" The man, Robert, as I later learned, looked more annoyed than embarrassed, as if I'd interrupted a business deal rather than exposed an affair. Without a word, I pulled out my leather notebook, the very one where I sketched my grandest designs. I wrote 6 words. My handwriting was precise, like my blueprints. "Don't come home. We're done." I placed the note and the lilies on the table, turned and walked out. My shoulders never slumped. My stride never faltered as I walked out the door. Not even when I heard Jennifer's desperate cry calling my name. A night of unveiling. I spent the next few hours driving aimlessly through Boston, a city I had helped reshape with my designs. The waterfront square, the Wilson Tower downtown, the new arts wing at Northeastern University, buildings into which I had poured my soul while my marriage apparently crumbled. Eventually, I retreated to my office, burying myself in work until the early hours. When I finally returned home, our townhouse was dark. For a fleeting moment, I thought Jennifer had honored my note. Then I saw her car in the driveway. My jaw clenched. Even in this, she couldn't follow a simple request. I walked in and found her perched in our living room, a glass of wine in hand, composed, as if awaiting a late guest, not facing the demise of our marriage. No tears, no overt despair, just a calculated composure. "We need to talk, Adrian," she said, setting her glass down with theatrical precision. I remained standing, arms crossed. About what? How long you've been sleeping with this gallerist? Or how much of a fool you take me for? It's not what you think, she sighed, as if I were a difficult client, overreacting to a minor design change. Robert, he's a colleague. What you saw was a business conversation. A bitter laugh escaped me. I've had many business conversations, Jennifer. None of them involved hand-holding and whispering in ears. You're overreacting, she rose, approaching me with the photographer's grace she always possessed. It was innocent. You've been so distant lately, buried in your projects. Robert appreciates my work. He listens and you don't. The calmness of my voice surprised even me. Not lately. Her tone shifted to accusation. You've been absent for months, Adrian. Mentally and physically, what was I supposed to do? Talk to me. Tell me there was a problem, I countered, my composure unwavering. Not sneak around behind my back like I was some inconvenience to be circumvented. She flinched, the first tremor in her facade. It just happened. It wasn't serious. How long? I demanded. Her hesitation spoke volumes. 3 months, she finally confessed, but it was only emotional, not physical. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Only emotional, as if betraying my trust isn't enough unless there's sex involved. Jennifer's eyes hardened. I didn't plan this, Adrian. I was lonely. Robert understands me in a way you stopped trying 2 years ago. So this is my fault? I stepped closer, towering over her. Your infidelity is because I worked too hard, building the life we both claim to want. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she uttered words that chilled me to the bone. I'm not sure I want this marriage, Adrian. I'm not sure I ever did. The calculated cruelty of that statement, delivered as if critiquing one of my designs, told me everything. This wasn't a momentary lapse. This was Jennifer, showing me who she truly was. Pack your things, I said quietly. By morning, I want you gone. Her eyes widened, truly surprised. Clearly, she'd expected me to beg, to negotiate, to compromise. She had severely underestimated the man she married. Where am I supposed to go? She demanded. I don't care. Call Robert. I turned away, heading for the stairs. I'm sure he'll find a place for you. Ghosts of the past, shadow of the future. Sleep eluded me that night. I spent hours in my home office staring at architectural plans that suddenly felt meaningless. Around 3 a.m., I heard Jennifer leave the guest room and exit the house. No slammed door, just a quiet click that somehow felt more final than any dramatic exit. By morning, I ran on coffee and resolve. I went to the office early, diving headfirst into the Richardson project with a singular focus. My team noticed something was amiss, but respected me enough to not pry. This is what I had built over the years, not just buildings, but respect. I was poring over foundation specifications when my phone vibrated with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered, Is this Adrian Steele? A male voice, unfamiliar but hesitant. My name is Steve Lawson. I work at Jennifer's studio. He paused. I think there's something you need to know. My grip on the phone tightened. I'm listening. Check your email. I just sent you something. She doesn't know I have it. The call ended. I opened my email and found a message with several attachments, photographs, and a video file. My hands were steady as I clicked on them one by one. The photograph showed Jennifer and Robert together, entering a hotel, embracing in a parking lot, laughing over dinner at restaurants I'd never been to. Timestamps spanned months. The video was worse. Filmed from a distance, clearly without their knowledge, it showed Jennifer and Robert outside his gallery after closing, engaged in an intimate embrace that could not be explained away as mere colleagues. Then, her voice clear as day, Adrian will never know. He's too busy building his precious buildings to notice what's happening right under his nose. Robert laughed. The oblivious husband. Classic because it's true. I closed my laptop. A strange calm settled over me. The betrayal was deeper than I had imagined, more calculated, more deliberate. This wasn't a momentary weakness, but a sustained campaign of deceit. I called Steve. Why are you showing me this? His voice was low. Because I was in your shoes 6 months ago. Different woman, same story. Nobody showed me the truth until it was too late. How long have you known? A while. She's not exactly discreet around the studio. The whole staff knows. I'm sorry, man. Hanging up, I sat perfectly still, processing this new reality. Jennifer hadn't just betrayed our marriage. She had mocked it, mocked me, made me the punchline of a joke she shared with her lover and her colleagues. My entire career, I had built things to last, structures designed to withstand time and the elements. I had applied those same principles to our marriage, believing it to be just as sound, just as enduring. I was wrong. That night, alone in our house, I made a decision. This would not break me. I had weathered professional setbacks that would have crushed lesser architects, client rejections, budget cuts, criticized and abandoned projects. Each time I had come back stronger, this betrayal was merely another structural failure to be analyzed and responded to, methodically, deliberately, like the architect I was trained to be. The Alliance of the Damned. The next morning, I received another message from Steve. Can we meet? There's more you should know. We arranged to meet at a small coffee shop far from Jennifer's studio. I arrived early, taking a corner table with a view of the door, an old habit from construction site negotiations. Trust but verify, positioning. Steve arrived precisely on time. A man in his early 30s with the wary air of someone who dealt with expensive camera equipment for a living. His handshake was firm, his expression grim. Thanks for meeting me, he said, sitting opposite me. You said there was more. I kept my voice calm, professional. I'm listening. He glanced around before leaning forward. Robert isn't just Jennifer's lover. He's married too. His wife Anita is a curator at the Gardner Museum. The revelation hit like a physical blow, not just an affair, but a double betrayal. 2 marriages fractured for what? Thrill? Ego? How do you know all this? I asked. Steve's expression hardened. Because Jennifer brags about it constantly to my girlfriend Megan, her assistant. How clever they are, meeting right under everyone's noses. How they've devised a system to keep you and his wife in the dark. A system, I repeated, the architect in me noting the irony of their meticulous planning. Alibis, fabricated stories, deleted messages. They've been at this for months. I nodded slowly, absorbing the new information. Steve, why are you really telling me this? You barely know me. He stared into his coffee. My ex-wife pulled the exact same stunt 3 years ago. Nobody warned me, even though half our friends knew. By the time I figured it out, she'd already moved her boyfriend into our house while I was on a business trip. He looked up, meeting my eyes. No one deserves that kind of humiliation. For a moment, a silent understanding passed between us, a brotherhood of betrayed men. Robert's wife, I finally said. Does she know? I don't think so. Jennifer made jokes about how oblivious she was, focused on her museum career while her husband was appreciating other works of art. His disgust was evident. Do you have a way to contact her? Steve hesitated, then nodded. Through the museum, probably. You thinking of telling her? Wouldn't you have wanted someone to tell you? I asked. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he pulled out his phone, showing me more evidence. Screenshots of messages between Jennifer and Megan, discussing meeting places, alibis, jokes about me. She's not who you thought she was, man. Steve's voice softened. And from what Megan says, this isn't ending anytime soon. They're talking about a trip to New York next month, supposedly for a gallery exhibit, really for a romantic getaway. I thanked him, my architect's mind already sketching plans, calculating angles, assessing load-bearing structures. Only now I was planning the dismantling of the life Jennifer had so carefully built on her lies. As we parted ways, Steve offered a final thought. Honestly, everyone at the studio thinks you got a raw deal. Jennifer's talented, but what she's doing to you is wrong. I nodded, shook his hand, and walked away, my steps purposeful. I had blueprints to draw, blueprints of accountability, the blueprints of retribution. Jennifer texted that evening. Need to pick up more of my things tomorrow. Will you be home? I stared at the message, noting the absence of an apology or any acknowledgement of what she had done. Typical. Her world revolved around her convenience. Home at 6, I replied. Be quick. Then I began to prepare. I printed every photograph, screenshot, and transcript Steve had provided, meticulously arranging them on the dining table, the same table where we'd celebrated anniversaries, hosted friends, and planned our future. I added printouts of Robert's social media profiles, including several photos of him with his wife at gallery openings and charity events. The next day at work, I maintained an iron focus despite the little sleep. My team noticed the change, mistaking my intensity for dedication to the Richardson project. In reality, I was preparing for a different kind of construction, the rebuilding of my life from the ground up. At 5:30 p.m., I headed home, stopping to buy a bottle of the scotch I reserved for project completions. This counted. I arrived home to find Jennifer's car already in the driveway. She was in our bedroom, filling a designer suitcase with designer clothes when I walked in. She'd used her key, despite my clear message that she wasn't welcome. "You're early," she said, not looking up. "It's my house." She flinched at my tone but continued packing. "I need to get my jewelry from the safe." "Fine." I watched her movements, confident, arrogant, as if this were a minor inconvenience rather than the end of our marriage. When she finally addressed me directly, her expression was carefully composed. "Adrian, I think we should discuss the house. I put a lot of work into the interior design and we'll let the lawyers handle that." I cut her off. "But before you leave, I'd like to show you something downstairs." Her brows furrowed with suspicion, but curiosity won. She followed me into the dining room where my presentation awaited her. The moment she saw the table, she froze. Her photographer's eye would instantly recognize the narrative, the images telling the story of her betrayal, laid out in chronological order with dates and locations. "What is this?" Her voice lost its composure. "Documentation," I replied calmly, pouring myself a scotch. "I'm an architect, Jennifer. I believe in meticulous planning and solid evidence." Her shock curdled into anger. "You've been tracking me? Spying?" "I didn't have to," I gestured to the images. "You were doing it so openly that your colleagues noticed. One of them has a conscience. Imagine that." Her eyes darted across the table, lingering on the photos of Robert with his wife. "This is an invasion of privacy. These are private moments." "So was our marriage." I took a slow sip of scotch. "Until you made it entertainment for your lover and your colleagues." Her face paled. "What are you going to do with this?" I shrugged. "Haven't decided yet, but Anita might be interested in seeing her husband's extracurricular activities, don't you think?" "You won't do that?" Fear crept into her voice. "Why not? You didn't hesitate to destroy our marriage. Why should I protect Robert?" Jennifer's carefully constructed facade finally crumbled. She was no longer in control, and the realization hit her like a physical blow. "Finish packing your things," I said quietly, "and leave your key." Jennifer left that night. Her composure shattered. She'd always prided herself on controlling the narrative in her photography, in our social circle, in our marriage. Seeing the evidence of her betrayal laid out with architectural precision, she was knocked off balance, exactly as I intended. After she left, I poured myself another scotch and drafted an email to Anita Collins, Robert's wife. I kept it simple and direct. "I have information about your husband that you should know. Would you be willing to meet?" I attached one photograph, nothing explicit, just Robert and Jennifer entering a hotel and my phone number. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. A man deals with difficult situations head-on, not by avoiding them. The architecture of retribution. The reply came faster than I expected. The next morning, my phone rang with an unknown number. "Is this Adrian Steele?" A woman's voice, level but guarded. "It is. This is Anita Collins. I received your email." She paused. "I would like to meet today, if possible." We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe, away from both the museum and Robert's gallery. I arrived early, taking a corner table with good privacy, Anita was punctual, a tall, elegant woman with a curator's discerning eyes. She carried herself with dignity, though the tension in her shoulders was evident. "Thank you for meeting me," I said, rising to greet her with a firm handshake. She nodded, her gaze direct and unyielding. "Your email wasn't exactly subtle, Mr. Steele." "Adrian," I corrected. Subtlety seemed counterproductive at this point. The ghost of a smile touched her lips. Fair enough. She sat, positioning herself with deliberate composure. "So you're Jennifer's husband." "Soon-to-be ex-husband," I clarified. She studied me intently. "How long have you known?" "About a week." I met her gaze steadily. "And you?" "I've suspected for months." Her admission surprised me. Robert isn't as clever as he thinks. Late nights at the gallery, mysterious business trips. Suddenly he put a password on his phone. She shook her head. "I'm a curator, Adrian. I'm trained to notice details." "Why didn't you confront him?" She sighed. "I needed proof, not just suspicion. My father was a lawyer. He taught me never to go into a battle unprepared." I opened my briefcase and pulled out several photographs, laying them on the table. "Is this enough preparation?" She meticulously examined each one, her expression never wavering, though her knuckles whitened around her coffee cup. "Yes," she said finally. "This is comprehensive." "There's more," I said. "Messages, emails, video. A colleague from Jennifer's studio provided them." Anita raised an eyebrow. "Someone with a conscience. A rarity these days." "My thoughts exactly." She gathered the photographs into a neat stack, her movements precise. "What do you plan to do, Adrian?" "End my marriage with dignity." "Beyond that?" I shrugged. "Undecided." She nodded slowly. "What if I propose something?" "I'm listening." "They think they're so clever, don't they? Playing us for fools while they indulge in their little escapades." A steel entered her voice. "I propose we show them just how wrong they are." As she outlined her plan, I recognized a kindred spirit, someone else who built things to last, who valued integrity, who refused to be anyone's victim. By the time we finished our coffee, we had an understanding and a path forward. "They underestimated both of us," Anita said as we parted ways. For the first time in days, I felt a sense of forward momentum. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about accountability. Anita's plan was elegant in its simplicity. She invited Robert to lunch at an upscale restaurant near the museum, a place they frequently visited for anniversary celebrations. I arranged for Jennifer to casually stumble upon us there. Steve helped, casually mentioning to Jennifer that I'd been seen with an attractive woman at Bellini's, and as Anita predicted, Jennifer's curiosity took over. I watched her enter the restaurant just as Anita and I were deep in conversation, heads close, her hand occasionally brushing mine for emphasis, a perfect mirror of what I'd witnessed at Luciana's cafe. Jennifer froze when she saw us, then marched straight to our table, righteous indignation etched on her face. "Seriously, Adrian, this is your answer? Already dating someone?" I calmly looked up. "Jennifer, what a surprise." Anita turned, her expression perfectly serene. "You must be Jennifer." "Adrian has told me so much about you." Jennifer stumbled, thrown off balance by Anita's calm demeanor. "And you are?" "Anita Collins." She extended a hand with a museum curator's grace. "Curator at the Gardner Museum and Robert's wife." The color drained from Jennifer's face. "Robert's wife?" "Yes," Anita smiled pleasantly. "Adrian and I were having the most fascinating conversation about betrayal, deceit, and consequences. Please join us." Jennifer remained standing, her photographer's instinct for framing situations clearly failing her. "This is an ambush." "No," I corrected. "This is a conversation, long overdue." "I'm not doing this here." Jennifer's voice trembled slightly. "That's your choice," Anita countered. "But Robert will be joining us shortly. He thinks I'm meeting a potential patron." Her smile sharpened. "Surprise?" Jennifer's phone was already in her hand, fingers flying across the screen, no doubt warning Robert, but it was too late. He appeared at the restaurant's entrance, scanning the room before his eyes landed on us. I watched the recognition dawn on his face. First, confusion, seeing his wife with me, then absolute panic as he spotted Jennifer at our table. "What's going on here?" he demanded, approaching us, attempting to maintain his gallerist's composure. "Clarity," Anita replied, her voice even. "Something long overdue." "We know everything," I added. "The hotels, the trips, the mocking messages, everything." Robert's confident facade cracked. "This is hardly the place." "You didn't worry about appropriate places when you were sleeping with my wife," I interrupted, my voice quiet but distinct. Several nearby patrons glanced our way, then quickly dropped their eyes to their plates. "Perhaps we should move this somewhere more private," Anita suggested, ever the professional. "Why?" I asked. "They didn't keep their affair private. Half of Jennifer's studio knows. College administrators gossiped about it. Why should we hide the consequences?" Jennifer and Robert exchanged panicked glances, finally realizing the full extent of their miscalculation. They had assumed us oblivious, career-distracted, easily deceived and manipulated. They were discovering just how wrong they were. The collapsing structures. The fallout from our restaurant confrontation spread like wildfire. Robert and Jennifer left the restaurant separately, he claiming a gallery emergency, she suddenly remembering a client meeting, both transparent excuses that fooled no one. Anita and I remained, finishing our lunch with surprising composure, given what had just transpired. We exchanged contact details and agreed to keep each other updated. I expected Jennifer's reaction to be swift, and it was. My phone exploded with messages that evening. "How dare you ambush me like that? Is this your idea of maturity? You had no right to involve Robert's wife." I left them unanswered, which only fueled her indignation. The next day, she showed up at my office, storming past my assistant despite her protests. "You've gone too far, Adrian," she spat, slamming my office door shut. I remained seated, calmly working on the Richardson plans. "I have? Or did I merely respond adequately to your betrayal?" "You're trying to destroy my life." Her voice rose, the composure she usually reserved for clients entirely absent. I finally looked up. "No, Jennifer, I'm simply ensuring you face the consequences of your choices, something you clearly didn't anticipate." "What do you want from me?" Desperation crept into her tone. "Nothing." The simplicity of my answer clearly threw her. "I want nothing more from you." She sank into the chair opposite my desk. "Robert's wife has frozen their accounts. She's filed for divorce. His gallery investors are nervous." "Actions have consequences," I replied, returning to my blueprints. "The gallery was supposed to show my work next month. This could ruin my career." I put down my pencil. "You should have thought about that before you decided to sleep with him, before you mocked me in front of your colleagues, before you made a fool out of me." Jennifer's expression shifted from anger to calculation. I recognized it from our home renovation negotiations. "I made a mistake, Adrian, a terrible mistake. But do we really have to destroy everything we built?" I almost admired her audacity. "We? There is no we anymore, Jennifer. You destroyed that when you chose Robert." "He broke up with me this morning," she confessed. "Said he needed to focus on saving his marriage." I laughed humorlessly. "And now you're back to your second choice. That's not how this works." "I never meant to hurt you," she tried again. "But you did, deliberately and repeatedly." I returned to my work, dismissing her. "My lawyer will be in touch regarding the divorce. I suggest you find a new gallery to show your work." After she left, I received a message from Anita. "Robert's begging for a second chance, promising therapy, transparency, the works. He's terrified for the gallery's reputation." I replied, "Jennifer just left my office. Suddenly remembered our marriage after Robert dumped her." Her reply came swiftly. "Funny how consequences clarify priorities, isn't it?" Indeed, the architect in me appreciated the structural logic. Remove a load-bearing beam, and a structure's true. Strengths and weaknesses are revealed. New foundations, new horizons. The days following our confrontation brought an avalanche of reactions. Friends and colleagues took sides, creating battle lines I never expected to see. Most surprising were those who defended Jennifer, suggesting I had overreacted or been unduly harsh. Claire, a designer we'd known for years, called one evening. "Adrian, I heard about what happened with Jennifer and Robert. Don't you think the public humiliation went too far?" "Would you prefer I remained silent while I was betrayed and mocked?" I countered. "Of course not, but involving his wife, creating a scene at Bellini's." She trailed off. "It just seems vengeful." "Accountability isn't vengeance, Claire, it's a necessity." The conversation ended awkwardly, another casualty of Jennifer's deception. Meanwhile, the professional repercussions mounted. Robert's gallery investors called an emergency meeting, concerned about the potential scandal impacting their investment. Jennifer's exhibit was indefinitely postponed. A significant client of my firm, a collector of Jennifer's photographs, quietly transferred their project to another architect, citing personal conflicts. Jennifer continued her campaign of reconciliation, sending increasingly desperate messages. "Adrian, please, we need to talk. This is destroying everything I've worked for. Can't we at least meet to discuss things civilly?" I maintained my stance with the same steadfastness that earned me respect in my profession. No reply was needed. Anita kept me updated on her situation. Robert had moved into a hotel, desperately trying to salvage both his marriage and the gallery. She remained resolute in her decision to divorce him, but moved strategically, ensuring her financial interests were protected. We met for coffee sometimes, finding an unexpected common ground beyond our shared betrayal. She understood the architectural principles that guided my work. I appreciated her curator's eye for detail and authenticity. A month after the confrontation, she texted me, "Robert's gallery board asked for his resignation today. Turns out sleeping with the photographers whose work you represent violates professional ethics. Who knew?" I replied, "Jennifer lost her studio lease. The landlord's wife, it turns out, is friends with her assistant Megan, who had quite the story to tell." In an unexpected turn, Steve from Jennifer's studio reached out to me about a potential collaboration. His architectural photography showed promise, and I was working on a book about the interplay between structure and environment. It was refreshing to build something new from the ashes of betrayal. For the first time since discovering Jennifer's affair, I felt a weight lift. I had faced a structural failure, assessed the damage, and was now designing something stronger, more authentic, a life built on honesty, not illusion. Sunset and sunrise. 6 months after discovering Jennifer's betrayal, I stood in my newly redecorated living room surveying the changes. Gone were the carefully curated art pieces Jennifer had chosen, replaced by architectural photographs from Steve's portfolio and a few selected works by younger artists recommended by Anita. The divorce had been swift once Jennifer realized I would not budge. Her lawyer had hinted at a claim to half the house, but backed down when my attorney countered with evidence of her affair and its potential impact on her already damaged reputation. I plunged into the Richardson Museum project, creating some of my finest work. The client noticed, commenting, "There's something different about these designs, Adrian. They're bolder, more authentic." He was right. Facing betrayal had stripped away pretense, leaving only what was genuine. I applied that lesson to my architecture, creating spaces that were honest in their purpose and structure. My phone vibrated with a message from Anita. "Exhibit opening tonight. Still need a +1? Interested?" Over the months, an unexpected friendship had blossomed between us. We occasionally met for dinner or at gallery openings. Nothing romantic. We were both too scarred for that. But something no less valuable: mutual respect and understanding. I replied, "I'll pick you up at 7C. Later that evening, as we walked through the gallery, Anita pointed to a small plaque near the entrance. "New Leadership and Artistic Direction, Megan Lawrence." I raised an eyebrow. "Steve's girlfriend? Jennifer's former assistant?" Anita nodded, a slight smile playing on her lips. "Turns out she's quite talented. Robert's former investors were rather impressed with her vision." "Life has a way of rebuilding, doesn't it?" I murmured. "Speaking of rebuilding," Anita said, "I received Jennifer's wedding invitation yesterday." A wedding? That's fast. Not to Robert, she clarified. Some photographer she met at a conference in Miami. The invitation seemed deliberate. I scoffed softly. I received one too, straight into the recycling bin. Aren't you curious about Jennifer at all? No, I said, studying a particularly striking photograph. That chapter is closed. As we moved through the exhibit, I realized how true that was. The anger had faded, replaced by something akin to indifference. Jennifer no longer occupied my thoughts. She had become a lesson, not a reopened wound. Later, over dinner, Anita raised her glass. Two unexpected allies and difficult lessons. I clinked my glass against hers, and to building something better from the ground up. She looked at me thoughtfully. You truly are moving on, aren't you? I'm an architect, I simply stated. When a structure collapses, you don't just return to the rubble. You learn from it, and then you design something stronger. Driving home that night, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. The betrayal had nearly broken me, but instead it had unearthed strengths I didn't know I possessed. The pain had been real. The anger had been justified, but they no longer defined me. I had designed and built a new life, with firmer foundations, clearer lines, and more authentic connections. A life where I no longer wondered what Jennifer was doing or why she chose to betray me. That, I realized, was the true form of moving forward.